Okay, we are doing Megillah Daf Gimel today, but we're starting from Beis and Beis, because that's where we got up to last time. And we are 5 lines from the bottom of Beis and Beis. 5 lines from the bottom. Rabbi Acha, Rabbi Yehuda ben Levi. Rabbi Acha ben Yehuda ben Levi and Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, B'Shem Rebbe, said, they all said, Lud v'gei charashim mukafos chama mimos Yeshua ben Nun. Lud and Gei Choroshim were surrounded with walls from the Yeshua ben Nun, and therefore the Megillah can be read there on Tezvav. The Lama Lo, now the here the Mashbiach changes this to, I'm not sure if I mentioned the Mashbiach before, explicitly, Rabbi Sivitz, who was the rabbi in Pittsburgh, tells her, who was in Pittsburgh till he was nifter in 1935, and he wrote a sefer on the Yerushalmi called the Mashbiach. In the Haskama to which the Chafetz Chaim writes that Erev Shar Lilmod Yerushalmi built the Sefer HaMashbiach. Now I think that I'm not sure if the Hafani Taras Kabos Ragli Chafetz Chaim, not sure that's 100% true, but gives you an idea of the amazing quality of the Sefer. So Mashbiach changes to Lama Lo Nomar Nami. Oh no. Why does it say also that Ono is a city which is Mukav Chomi Moshe Shebenun, surrounded by wall for David Yeshua? Begin to receive, because these are written, right? I'm sorry, because it's written that it's written down explicitly in Navi that it was Mukav Chomi at the time. Says more. Wait a minute. So how could that be? That's not a reason not to lit it. Lamalo. Ksiv Lud, Visamarto. Lud is also written explicitly, and yet you felt it necessary to tell us that Lud moves Mukav Chom Nosir Shebenun. So why not tell us also Ono? So Elabegin de Tninon, because we learned in Braisa. We learned Unamal Vutamala, Ugdor, Vehedir, Ono, Yerushalayim. Now these are in terms of cities which are Mukav Choma, surrounded by walls, in terms of halach of Bate Orei Choma, that they are the house which is sold in the base Yer Choma goes back for the first year. It's possible to redeem it. At first year, it becomes the buyers. Getting a phone call, just see if it's no good to the share. I got it. Let's see. Hello? Yeah. Yeah, hi, Hannah. Can you call me back in about 45 minutes or so? Okay, thanks, bye. No, it's not no good to the share. Sometimes it's afraid somebody calls because they can't get on, so therefore I answer. Sorry. So begin to Nina, because we learned in that context, the Mala Ugdor v'Hedir v'Ono v'Yerushalayim v'Chein Kayotze Bahem. And it says similar things. So it says explicitly, if not in the context of Megillah, at least it says in the context of the Halacha B'Terei Chama. Now, V'Haksiv, asked the Gemara on the top of Gimel Amud Aleph, doesn't it say V'nei Alaf El, Aver Mishmam, Shemer Hu Banas Omo, Ono Beslod Besmenosel? How can you say that they were built by the built of Yeshua ben Nun if it says that this fellow named Shemer built Lud, Ono and Lud? And Amar Abelazar, Rabbi Yosa, B'Yimei Pelagish B'Girva, Chorva, the Vamad Elafel, Ubenoya. So the Gemara says that evidently they were destroyed at the times that they existed at the time of Kibush Yoshua, and they were destroyed at the time Pelagish B'Giva. Evidently, they were cities which were destroyed in the civil war between Binyamin and the rest of Am Yisrael, and therefore they had to be rebuilt. And El Fa'al Amar El Fa'al Benoya. Okay, so I guess the way to read the plus on top was actually Umnei El Fa'al Aver Mishmam the Shemer. Those are children who, going back on El Fa'al, not Shemer, Banos Ono Veslud Ubenosea built these cities. Okay, but in any event, he rebuilt them. They were built right there at the time of Yeshua. Although the Stephen, that was the true no, we saw in Shoftim after the civil war between Binyamin and between the rest of Am Yisrael. So then, Korean and so Shochel Ba'esh, all the cities which they found, they destroyed in fire, and including Rechina V'Shem Rapichos, Lod V'Ono, Hein Gei HaCharoshim, and evidently Lod Ono, which in fact he says are Gei HaCharoshim. So I guess that those are later names, Ono and Lod. At the time, they were called, both of them were called Gei HaRoshim. Okay, in any event, now the Mashbiach says that we should here put in the Mishnah from Shkolim, because we're about to comment on Mishnah and Shkolim. Mishnah and Shkolim says, Betu bo in the 15th day of it, Karnas Megillah B'Krachim. We read the Megillah in the metropolises. We're talking about the word bo, which appears in that Mishnah. So Rabbi Chelbo has something to say about that word bo. Let's go look at the Gemara. Rabbi Chuna b'shem Rabbi Chia Rabba. Rabbi Chelbo and Rabbi Chuna named Rabbi Chia Rabba. Rabbi Chia in the Yerushalmi is always called Rabbi Chia Rabba. Rabbi Chia the Great. He doesn't have that title in the Bavli. I don't know why. But in Yerushalmi, obviously, he was the, so to speak, the transition figure between the major transition figure. There are a few others, but the major transition figure between the Mishnah and Gemara. And of course, he was the redacted the Brises with Rabbi Yeshua. So he's always called Rabbi Chia Rabba, right? So he said, "Hakol yotzim barbasar shuzman kriyasa." Everybody is yotzei on the 14th day, right? Of Adar, right? Loba lamed chosha mitzvos says zman kriyasa, which time is kriya. Loba lamed chosha mitzvos nagos ba'adar sheni. It only comes to tell us that the mitzvos are noeg in Adar sheni. I mean, don't think that you can't read on Yudalit and be yotzei in the krachim. You can read Yudalit and be yotzei krachim. I assume under certain circumstances, perhaps. But in any event, the word bo is not going to stress that Tezvav specifically and not Yudalit. It's going to stress Adar Sheni specifically and not Adar Rishon. Okay, so that's telling you Lamed Chosha Mitzvos no Nagos B'Adar Sheni specifically. Okay, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Acha, yes, Rabbi Acha said Rabbi Acha lo mistabra ella. The Mashbiach puts in here lo mistabra ella l'sha'ava aval haba. Now in the Yerushalmi, I don't know if we ever find it, but it's only we rarely find the word b'di'evet. L'sha'avar is the same thing as b'di'evet. B'di'avad in Aramaic means when you did it already. L'sha'avar means after the fact. They both have the same meaning. So it says laba is the same thing as l'chatchila. L'chatchila means beforehand, right? Bitchila, right? So too, laba means when you're standing before the fact, how to do it. So he's saying, okay, I understand, but you're saying Yudal Bras, l'chatchila to read in a krach and Yudalit, that doesn't matter. L'chatchila should read Tezvav. Tani Mokum Shnoguli Kroisa Beis Yomim, Koinasa Beis Yomim. There wasn't L'chatchila to read on Tezvav. How can you have such a minute which some people have to read in Ayoros HaMusupakos, and the cities which were a question, on both Yudal and Tezvav? If you're Yotze and Yudal L'chatchila, there's no reason really to read on Tezvav. So it must be, in some cities had a minute to read both Yudal and Tezvav, that it's a Chatchila to read at Tezvav. So even if you read it in Yudal, in Mukav Choma, a krach, you should read again at Tezvav to be Yotze the Din L'Chatchila. It's interesting because this might be no again. I never thought of this before now. At least I don't think I've thought about this. There's a famous Chakir from Reb Chaim. Reb Chaim said when you have a esrog, you have two esrogim. One is Vadei Kosher but not Muhudar, and the other is Muhudar but not Vadei Kosher. So Reb Chaim or Brisker Rav, one of the two said, I think it's Reb Chaim stencil. I think it's Reb Chaim. He said that you're supposed to take the first one, which is Musafeh kosher, but Mahudar, and before the one which is kosher, because Hider Mitzvah, famous word of Reb Chaim, Hider Mitzvah, was it Brisker Rav? I don't remember which one, but one of the two, Hider Mitzvah, it can only be done in conjunction with the mitzvah itself. You can't do Hider Mitzvah after the mitzvah. It doesn't work. So therefore, you have to do the, even though you might not be Yotze the mitzvah, but if you want to be Yotze the mitzvah, it's only in conjunction with the mitzvah itself. So therefore, you have to do the mitzvah with the Hidur. Therefore, you take the one which is Mesupuk, but Mahudar first, and then you take the one which is definitely kosher afterwards, just in case we're Yotze with the first one. But here we find, interestingly enough, it seems to be the opposite. And Yesh Chalik, but it seems to be at first glance a question of Reb Chaim, because here it says that, or the Brisker Rav, because here it says that you read on Yud Dalet, and you're Yotze already with the Evet, but nevertheless you can do Chumrah and read on Tezvav again. So you have to be mechalik between a Chumrah and a Hidur, but in any event, it's interesting that here the order is reversed from what Reb Chaim says by Ezra. Okay, so Amar Leis, he said, I also held this way. Amar Rabbi, in other words, I also hold like Yulchat Kila Tezvav. Amar Rabbi said, it's taka true. Ilu Misha Karya Ba'arbasar, the Chazakay Chamisha Sar, Shema Ein Shomim Lo. Do we not listen to him? Now, this is kind of like the Derech Yerushalmi in frequently to go over the same idea twice, redundantly, which you don't find in the Bavli, evidently because the Bavli was better edited. So we don't have that kind of redundancy in the Bavli. But in Yerushalmi, it is quite common. But here I wrote here on the side that it seems this is going on a Mukaf ben Yomo who read already on Yudalit. In other words, he went on Yudalit, and then he traveled. Let's say he was said to spend the first day of, so to speak, Purim outside Yerushalayim, and then he went to Yerushalayim with his Tezvav, right? And so he... the halacha is that he has to, or the way we know it is he reads the next day with a bracha, right? And if it was Yotzin Chatchila by on Yudalid, so how can he possibly read again on Tezvav with a bracha? So again, it's the same idea, more elaborated than the first way of discussing it. So, and then he says, going back to the Gemara, it says, and this is another question. If, according to the way I'm going to get, if you're going to say you can always be Yotzei Dalet, so the time of Tezvav is going to be Nishtakech, it's going to be forgotten. Nobody's going to keep Tezvav anymore because everybody's going to do Dalet. They're going to chap around the mitzvah. So therefore, it can't be that Krachim can also be Yotzei L'Chatchila on Dalet. Okay. Nachman Breder of Shmuel Bar Nachman, son of Shmuel Bar Nachman, said, Simcha v'Sason. It says about the days of Purim. New issue. Says there's point there. Simcha v'Sason. Mikachim asurim behesped. They're also into so as to be maspid. So as to give eulogy. I am down this one because it says Simcha v'Sason. It says umishta. Also it says that they're days of mishta of partying. Mikan shasurim metanis. From here we learned that you're not allowed to fast on Purim. The Yom Tov. It also says about Purim. It's the Yom Tov. Mikan shasurim b'siyas melacha. There was a strong Havamina at the time, evidently, of the second Beis Hamikdash, or early Chazal, that it should be also been Malacha. So, Amar Rabbi Chelbo said, Zinin Sagin, Yasib is coming to Rishmuel. Many times standing in front of Rishmuel. Sorry, Rishmuel Ben Nachman. The Lo Shemitz Minal Domils, I never heard from such a thing. That it's also been Malacha. Who ever heard such a thing? So, Amalesa said, Kol Madahava. Oh no, Shmiya. It's coming to change it from Abba Shmiya. Because Abba could work out too, but you have to. But then Shmiya means to be Mashmiya. But so it's better, much easier to say Kol to have a Shmiya. All that I heard on his son, Rishon Nachman's son, at Shmiya, you also heard. That you weren't there. So I heard it, right? So Mr. Rabbi Plika. But Rabbi argues in the Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachman. The Rabbi Amar Farsi Matzmo. Shnei Yomim Mishana Reichitz. He from his first himself, he publicized that 2 days a year he would go and to the bathhouse. In other words, he would do a Ma'aseh B'Farasya of Melacha. but Rochetz b'Shiva Sar b'Tammuz. This is he would go to the bathhouse on Shiva Sar b'Tammuz. And V'notea Netios b'Purim, and he would planting on Purim, which of course is a very public malacha. You want to get it's not also malacha. Rabbi Chaviva, so Rishon Nachman was nidche by Rabbi. Evidently, until the time of Rabbi, there was some movement. And I was told to make Purim also b'malacha, but Rabbi put a stop to that. Rabbi Chaviva Hashem Rabbanan, the Tamon. Rabbi Chaviva said the name of rabbis Abavel. B'chol makom shekasav yontiv, en ksiv kibel. Whenever in the Megillah it says yontiv, it doesn't say that the Jews were makabel. B'chol makom shekasav kibel, en ksiv yontiv. Right? So, we can't ksiv yontiv, and here it says yontiv. And here the Shara Torah Eretz Yisrael puts in, and similar to Moshe, and I shouldn't choose Shara Torah Eretz Yisrael. It was about time B'chacham, I think about Bas, who lived in Brisk before the First World War. I think he died while they were going from Brisk and in exile during the First World War. There's a monumental work on all Yerushalmi, Shara Torah Eretz Yisrael, very, very creative, very innovative, and lots of good tikkunik yourselves, and Mar Mekaimis and Ha'aris. And again, one of the its use was not available for many, many years, and I took on permanent loan, although by now I should return it. The Shara Torah itself from the Skokie Yeshiva Library, courtesy of the librarian, Rebbe Ginspark, and I'm sure he would want it back by now. But I still have it, even though I bought, Baruch Hashem, all these Svarim, Mashbiach, Shara Torah Yisrael, even though they used to not be available, they're available through HebrewBooks.org. I don't get paid by HebrewBooks.org to publicize this, but you can go to HebrewBooks.org, download them, and they have some arrangement someplace, I forget where you can print it and bind it for you and send you a bound copy. So I now have both of them through Hebrew Books. Anyway, so he says, Kank Siv Yontiv V'lo Ksiv Kibel. Again, it puts in the below. Rabbi Mimon, B'Shem Rav Shulbar Nachman. Interesting. Rabbi Maimon was not just, see that? Some things you gloss over. The Rambam's father was not the first person named Maimon. Here it is. Rabbi Maimon, B'Shem Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachman. Mishpacha, Mishpacha. It says family by family, read the Megillah. Elu Akfarim. Those are the villages, which read on, they can read it several times, right? Depending on what the Yom HaShuk, whatever the market day is. Medina, Elu Krachim. Those are the metropolises. Elios, those are the towns which read on Yudal. Tanishmum, that's what it is. Why they read earlier on the Yom HaKnisa? In order to be able to provide Maimu Mazon to their brothers in the to provide food and water to their brothers in the large cities. Rabbi Philippa, look at that, Philip. Okay, Rabbi Philippa Bar Pruta. There's the name. Amar Kum Rabbi Yana said in front of Yana, Leisa da Amara. Does this not teach us Shemutzer Basiyas Malacha? Again, the Korban Eder changes here. Shemutzer Basiyas Malacha. In other words, where they're going to misapik my umazon to their brothers in the cities, not on Yudal base. No, they read Yudal base so that Yudal does both. They can misapik. They give water and food to their brothers in the big cities, right? So it seems from this we see it's Mutzer Basiyas Malacha, right? That's not raya, because Harei Chol Shamoed, Harei also B'Siyas Malacha, because Chamoed is also there is Malacha, which is restricted. When we say that Purim is a Yontif, it doesn't necessarily mean to be Yontif like the first and the seventh day of Yontif, first and eighth day of Yontif. It means be Yontif like Chol Hamoed. El Chamoed also, Harei also B'Siyas Malacha. They Mitzapki my Muslim Achim Shebekrachim. So therefore, we go back to what we know name of Rebbe. The Rebbe, let's go to the Rebbe. Avon Farsim Atzmo Shnei Yomim B'Shana Roche. He publicizes 2 days a year. Roche Yitzayim B'Tammuz. He would go to the bathing Yitzayim B'Tammuz, Noite Tios B'Purim, and plant things on Purim. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Shuna Ba Kumei, Rabbi Mana. He asked for Rabbi Yosef. in the house of Rabbi, the son of Rabbi Shuram, asked from Rabbi Mono. Below Ezra, Tikkun Shu Kohen B'Torah, V'Sheni Chamishi V'Shabbos Mincha. Was it not Ezra who Misaken, who instituted to read the Torah on Monday, Thursday, and Shabbos Mincha? Now, questions. So what? So you're looking to read Baz here. The Baz says brings down basic Sham. The question, and this often happens in Yerushalmi, the question is not from the part which is brought down, but from the Chule, etc., from the next part of whatever we're reciting here too. So basic Sham, it says there, Shu based in Yoshim Bayoros. That Ezra is also in Takana, that basin should sit on Monday and Thursday. Va'kavan lakshos mi seifa, and the intent is asked in the end. Umaschil mikore b'Torah, and he starts from reading the Torah, but hakavana seifa, right? And he says, "B'zeh kazeh itzim Yerushalmi kama v'kama pamim." This happens frequently in the Yerushalmi. So it sounds like it's the question evidently is, why are you attributing this to this Yom Knisa Takana to Mordechai and Esther? It seems like kind of Ezra, or right? Mordechai and Esther maskina masha Ezra si laskin. What Mordechai and Esther masakin? Well, actually, that's not. Ezra made it a Yom HaKnisa, right? The Yom HaKnisa, because everything focused on the sitting of Beis Din. So therefore, how can Mordechai and Esther anticipate this? The time Mordechai and Esther didn't yet exist. How could they anticipate that Monday and Thursday would be the time of Yeshiva's Beis Din? They make Knisa, right? He said, he said, the person who arranged the Mishnah linked it to the pasuk, mishpacha, Medina, v'ir, v'ir. In other words, evidently, what we're saying is that the Mordechai and Esther were the ones, not ones masaking this. It was a later takana, right? Even though at the beginning of Masechtas Megillah, sounds like we need a special dispensation in order to have later days, in order to have other days. But that's not necessarily a contradiction. Game Yemei Purim, it said at the beginning of the Sefer. But it could be the Mordechai and Esther said, okay, you get extra days. And what the days were, Ezra's, they linked the days that Ezra instituted later on. And the Masader HaMishnah, whoever was Masader later on, this Brisa, whatever, it's not really a Mishnah, it's a Brisa, linked it to Mishpacha, Medina, V'ir, but it's not Smachta. At the time in the Megillah, those days did not exist. Later, there was leeway for when to read. Later on, the Chazal linked it to the day Yom HaKnisa, and they gave a similar davar by linking it to that pasuk in the Megillah. Okay, Halacha Beis. Ketzad. How so? Now we talk about how we read on different days than the days that are enumerated. Chaz B'Shem comes out on Monday, the Yudalit. So Kfarim Bayoros Gedolos, Kfarim Bayom. So the Kfarim Bayoros Gedolos, they read on that day. Umukavos Chaim, because it's Yom HaKnisa. Umukavos Chaim L'machar, and those that are surrounded by walls read the next day. Chal Yos B'Shlish Revi comes out on Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Kfarim HaKnisa, so the Kfarim read on a Monday. Bayoros Gedolos, no Kfarim Bo Bayom, and the great and big cities read on that day. The one's surrounded by walls the next day. So it says the Gemara Kol Hein D'Tninon. Anytime it says Chal Lios Barbos, Kol Hein D'Tninon Chal Lios. In other words, Chal Lios means the beginning of the Mishnah. It doesn't say it's time to Yudalit, right? It's Chal Lios Barbos on the kind of Mishnah. It's about the 14th. The Brisa tells us this, says because, or the Mishnah really, in this case, in the Bavli, Masnis is always Brisa, Masnis is always Mishnah. In the Yerushalmi, that distinction doesn't necessarily exist. So he's saying, Amar Kain, Mukafas Chaim Elamachar. The ones who try by all the next day. Amar Rabbi Leis Kan Chaliyos B'Sheni. There is Purim cannot come out on Monday, and Leis Chalis Shabbos cannot come out on Shabbos. Why? Because Chalios B'Sheni, if it comes out on Monday, then Soma Rabba B'Cha B'Shuvah, then Yom Kippur is going to come out on Sunday. Because the only days which vary in the Jewish calendar are Cheshvan and Kislev. Only days, only months which vary in length, are Cheshvan and Kislev. So by the time Purim rolls around, we know when next Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is going to be. And since we make sure that Yom Kippur never comes out on Sunday or on Friday, so therefore it can't come out on Monday, because then Yom Kippur would be on Sunday. Chalos b'Shabbos, Tzoma Rabba Bar Uvta, and then it would came out on Shabbos. Then Yom Kippur come out on Erev Shabbos, and we don't do that as well. So it seems that at least at the time of the Yerushalmi, that Kviyus HaLuach, that was principle of the Luach, existed, and so therefore they when making the Luach, and it was evidently not completely up here at that point. Evidently was in Taros and Rishonim here in the back of the Gemara, being on the Rishonim, we discussed this, that whether this is the time of the Mishnah, only the time of the Gemara, and when the Luach was Kavua, and when these principles were set in place. But we see that already the time before Hillel Hasheni, who comes after the Yerushalmi. He was an Amor in Eretz Yisrael, but he was not mentioned in Yerushalmi. And the Bayan Rava, who also Rambam writes that Hillel Hasheni were made the Luach time of Bayan Rava, it's after Yerushalmi. We see already the time of Yerushalmi, which is previously, even though they might still be in Mekadosh Piriya to a certain extent, they already had this principle in place. Make sure Yom Kippur does come out on Sunday or on Erev Shabbos. Okay, we will stop here for today. Mr. Shem pick up with Halacha Gimel next Sunday.